People often ask me what they should focus on when they're trying to make health, wellness, nutrition, fitness improvements in their life. And it's really hard to answer that question because it's definitely a very individual need. But a tool that I have that I think is really helpful to people is what I call the wellness wheel. And the basic premise of the wellness wheel is that when it comes to health, wellness, and fitness, you really want to try and find a balance in your life. In other words, it's not about doing one thing to the extreme. It's about trying to do little improvements in all areas that you can benefit from so that your body will benefit from them. And really, we also have to remember that our body is very good at trying to adjust and compensate for when we don't always make the best decisions. So you can depend on your body a little bit. It's just when we do something one extreme or the other, good or bad, that our body sometimes has a bit of a challenge helping us or working with us. So if we're making small improvement in many areas, it really works well with how your body can benefit. So I suggest trying to work with what's called the wellness wheel. And what this is a really good example of trying to find where you may be out of balance in your life. And so how it works is there's quite a few categories, and you can modify the categories a little bit based on what's important to you. But I have in this particular case hydration, raw food, sleep, stress, emotional health, detoxification, meal prep, stretching, and movement. And so what happens is you sort of rate how you're doing in each area, assuming the center is 0 and the top is 10. So for hydration, you may look at it and say, do I regularly drink water throughout the day? And this can be a lot of factors. Sometimes do you drink water that's closer to your body temperature so that it's absorbed a lot? Do you drink it slowly over long periods of time? Or do you chug it where it may not be able to absorb as much? Do you drink similar amounts every day? You're not drinking lots one day and then none the next. And then you're looking at, do you have other liquids? Do you drink lots of coffee or caffeine that would work against the water that you intake? And so you sort of give yourself a bit of a rating. So from 0 to 10, and then I usually just do a dot that sort of says, you're a 6 or a 7 there. And then move on to the next one. In this particular case, it's raw foods. I sometimes also label this as vegetables. It's just really that one big health benefit you can make in your life that is also very challenging for people. But, you want to look at, do you eat vegetables and raw foods several times throughout the day? Do you make sure that you eat them every day? You maybe have some cooked vegetables, but do you also have some raw vegetables in your diet? And then you want to look at, is it something that you eat? Do you eat a variety of vegetables? Are you trying new vegetables sometimes? Are you trying to find different vitamins and mineral sources? Do you eat local vegetables where you're going to find the vitamins and minerals that are appropriate for the climate you live in? Are you having some organic vegetables? And so you want to sort of rate all those factors. It's not just do you eat raw vegetables, it's all these other factors that benefit. And again, give yourself a bit of a rating. Do you do vegetable juicing, that sort of thing. The next one's sleep. Now, sleep is, do you sleep well? The majority of people do not sleep well, but there's also a few other factors here to consider too. So do you do sleep prep? In other words, do you have a bit of a routine that you help your body try and get into, a good sleep pattern? Do you sleep uninterrupted throughout the night? Do you have noise going on? Do you have light factors that may be influencing you? Do you eat right before you go to sleep? Do you have a good sleep environment with your bed and the room that you're in? So you want to rate your sleep from not just simply do you sleep well or not, but all the other things that you can be doing to help your sleep and improve your sleep as well. So give yourself a rating there. Now, stress, interesting one. Mostly this one is it can be, you know, do you have stress in your life? Are there outside factors that cause you stress? But you also want to rate how well you deal with it. So, you know, if you don't handle stress very well, that's a factor. But also, what are you doing to try and handle that stress? So, are you trying to change your thought patterns? Do you have habits and rituals that you do when you're exposed to stress? So you really want to rate not only the stresses that you're exposed to, but also, you know, how many tools you've put into place to try and deal with that. So I'm going to give myself a bit of a smaller rating for that. And then emotional. And so some people can sometimes think these are one and the same. But with emotional, I want you to think about, you know, what you think about. How do you talk to yourself? How do you talk to yourself when you're going through challenging times? How do you talk to yourself when you're trying to achieve a goal? How do you deal with when you think about things that happened in your past that aren't the greatest memories? You know, do you bury traumas or issues or sadness from years before, or have you dealt with them? When you're exposed to sadness or anger, do you just try and overcome it, or do you actually feel the feeling and think about why you feel that way? You know, when you're frustrated or nothing seems to be going well for you, do you try to think about how that makes you feel, and what you could do to maybe better take care of yourself or comfort yourself when you're feeling that way? So there's a lot that's going on here, but a big one I really want to encourage people to think about is think about what you say to yourself. So when you're going through tough times or things aren't going well, are you encouraging yourself? Are you motivating yourself? When you make mistakes, do you knock yourself down? Those emotional factors play a really big role in your health. So I want you to consider those as well. Detoxification. Now, this one, you know, detox can mean a lot of things, so I want to use caution that we're not talking about these crazy, extreme weight loss type of detoxes, but you just want to think about, does it feel like your body is processing and detoxing things well every day? Do you have fluctuations in your digestive system where it feels like it's not and then it is, or it goes extreme? Are you doing little things that make sure that you're detoxing, including just drinking water? But like, do you sometimes drink lemon water? Do you drink herbal teas that might be helpful? Do you drink enough liquids and raw foods that will help clean out your system? You know, do you do maybe vegetable juicing that's helpful? And then some people do sometimes do, based on their symptoms and in cooperation with a naturopath or a nutritionist, try some mild natural detoxes that will help when things don't seem to be operating well. So do you have practices in place that help when your system doesn't seem to be detoxing? You know, do you eat a really healthy diet? Is it high in sugar? Are you doing something to compensate for the sugar or the sugars you did eat in the past that may have assisted in a candida overgrowth? So there's a lot of things that you can be doing here very subtly, almost daily and weekly, that will help with detoxification. They don't need to be extreme, but you do want to make sure that you're staying on top of it and watching for it. So again, you can rate that on this scale as well. Meal prep. So this is basically overall, generally, how are you eating? Are you eating when you feel hungry? Are you eating when you just have cravings? Are you planning ahead? A lot of times we make bad decisions just because we haven't planned ahead. You know, a healthy lunch or a healthy snack. Meal prep at night is, you know, is it out of a box? Is it fast food? Or are you making it mostly from sourced foods? So you really want to look at your actual meal prep. Are they healthy, back to basics sort of components, or are you finding you're making rash decisions and making not ideal decisions a lot of the time? So you can figure that out with meal prep. Stretching. I think stretching needs to be not only a daily practice, but something we do throughout the day, especially when we're exposed to stress, especially when we're exercising. But over time, we find that areas get tight, don't have as much movement, we don't have the same circulation. So stretching just in general is something that's great to do in the morning, but it's also really valuable to do right before bed. But throughout the day, even when you're having stressful moments, to stop and stretch, relax your breathing. I put breathing in this component as something, a factor in, how well and often you're stretching. So you can think about that when you're giving yourself a rating for stretching. Are you stopping basically throughout the day several times, catching your breath, taking nice, deep, long breaths? It's like stretching your lungs, helping everything get circulated and calm down and relax so that all your processes happen very strategically and not as though your body is under pressure or stress in one area, and that sort of everything has to compensate. So admittedly, not a strong area for me, so I'm going to give myself a low rating, probably around a 4. And then the last one's movement. And I call it movement. Some people want to refer to it as fitness or exercise, but I just really think it's important that you're active every day. And you want to be moving in a way that, yes, maybe builds your muscles or your strength, but also builds your endurance, gets your breathing going, gets your cardio up and your heart rate up. So those are all factors of movement. And one I would add in here too is some of that movement outside. So you really want to the benefits of getting activity outdoors means that your oxygen intake is that much stronger. The oxygen that you're inhaling is that much more pure. So you're really regenerating your system so much better, faster, and more effectively when you can do it outdoors. So that's something to give yourself a bit of a rating for in movement. And it's something I love to do every day, so I'm going to give myself a high rating. So you can sort of see the dots or the lines as I go around. And then what you're going to do is actually wherever your dot is make a line around the pie. So I'll just do it quickly here. And it gives you an idea of the areas that may be lacking. So you can see it goes a bit like this is how you'll end up with your ratings. I like to join the lines in between, so I will show you what that means, because I think this is where it reveals all. So if you think of this wheel as your wheel of life, you can see that if it was turning, so if this is the actual wheel and you're following the lines that I created, it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride. So I like to think of how can I balance out this wheel a little better so that things operate a little more smoothly. In other words, your body and your life can run in a more uniform circular motion, which is going to be a lot easier on yourself, obviously, versus operating like this. So you can see where I definitely need to work on my hydration. I also need to work a little bit on how I'm managing the stress in my life. And then the big one is that I need to improve on my stretching and my breathing. So I think what I would do in this case is I'm going to take stretching and breathing as my priority. The next one I'm going to do is work on my stress. And then at the same time, I can be working a little bit on my hydration. But it gives you an idea of where your priorities should be and where your focus should be. So simply, if I start working on my stretching and my breathing, I'm potentially going to improve a little bit of how I handle and manage the stress in my life. And then obviously the water intake's going to help me generally, but it's also probably going to help those two factors as well. So I know that because there's so many things we can focus on improving in our life, I'm simply going to just focus on stretching. So I'm going to establish a goal and going to describe in full detail what that is and why that is my goal. So in this particular case, I'm going to set a goal for, 1 minute stretching in the morning, 1 minute stretching before bed, and eventually build on that goal so that maybe I'm stopping throughout the day and doing a couple of more. But I think what you'll find is that this gives you a really good and clear image of where to set your focus, and then you can redo the wheel many times over, and you can adjust the categories a little bit for what are important to you, and hopefully this makes you a little less distracted on all the different things you might want to do or improve in your life, because I think we want to remember that the well-balanced, small improvements, small habits are really what are going to make a big difference for your health.